All right, let's get this party started. How is everybody today? Glad you joined us for the 8th School Roundtable, Financial Roundtable, that is. So again, welcome. And I am excited that you're with us. So money is not the most important thing in life, but it is like oxygen on the gotta have it scale. And there can be crazy times at any time in the world of a school and a small business. And certainly the last year has been crazy. So this whole idea with the financial roundtables is to create community around the financial issues and opportunities and to create great conversation, including current and future members that we call our brain trust. Again, school's a big part of the professional beauty and wellness ecosystem. And what we did is we've been doing this roundtable for salons and spas over the last year. We just had our 53rd session, and we decided to make this available for schools, and it's been a ton of fun doing that. So thanks for joining us today. The sponsors of these roundtables are Qnity and Pivot Point. Great partnership with Pivot Point. We gave a little bit more information about that last week, which I'll touch on again shortly. Also, Lightheart Sanders, thanks to Jared Sanders and his firm for the great work that they do, as well as undertaking a financial benchmark project, which we think is great. So again, I'm from Qnity. Part of what we do is help make what's complicated, confusing, and overwhelming to make it simple, clear, and to come up with a path for greater financial success. We lean on what we call a brain trust, which is guests that we invite. And we've had tons of them over the last year. Several of these contributors have come back multiple times. And this week's guest will be Nathan Lawless, the CFO at Floyds, based out of Denver. We'll get to Nathan in a moment here. Last week, we had Robert Passage. Loved the session with Robert last week. I've been dying to get him on here. And we did. And part of what we did last week, Robert and I, was we introduced our new course, the Money course, Money by Qnity, which is a financial success training program for students. Only 25% of students and 20% of parents say they're prepared to deal with the financial challenges that await them after graduation. So we went through a content preview, et cetera. So certainly we'll give you nuggets of this on some of these roundtables as we go. We hope you have some light bulb moments today. And we furnished the Qnity 9 grid as a way to mind map ideas and keep notes and find your own light bulb moments. So I am going to now come off of the sharing the screen. And Nathan, how are you?
Good morning, Tom. I'm good, or good afternoon, I guess the case may be.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
And you were with me a couple hours ago, and we had a great session. I loved it. We got some great feedback. And so thanks for joining us again.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
For some random reason, I was looking at the temperature here in Minnesota. It's 77 degrees, and it is going to go to 99 degrees in 2 hours. We're going to have a 20-degree change here in Minnesota. I know it's completely random, but you're out in Denver area, right?
I am, yeah. I'm located in Denver, and it's been, a nice 96, 95, 97 here, every day, sunny. So
awesome. Well, I know this group didn't dial in to hear us talk about the weather, but when it gets that extraordinary, I got to bring it up. So having you be a guest has been something I've been wanting to do since way back in May when I first got introduced to you. I got introduced to you by Phil Horvath, who's a great industry contributor. He's now the CEO of Floyds. And I said, geez, I would love to have a CFO on one of these roundtables. I said, do you know anybody? He said, yeah, right down the hall. And he mentioned you. So we got to know each other a little bit with scheduling and all that. We're finally together. So thank you.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So in a previous session, it must have been maybe 6 weeks ago, I touched on CFOs and talk about CFOs and their capabilities and the need to upgrade the skills of the CFO. But I think you and I have a similar mindset in the sense of who is a CFO? And every business has a CFO. Let's go there first, and then I'll give a little background for you and that kind of stuff. But I want to make sure we hit the relevance of this for our guest today.
Yeah, I mean, look, anybody who owns a business and operates a business, no matter what, somebody's the CFO. Somebody's in charge of your financial reporting, your relationship with banks, vendors, over top of facilities, IT, et cetera. It may be you, it may be, if you and your spouse are involved, or you and a business partner, maybe your partner, but fundamentally somebody fills that role. And so it's not so much a job title as a role in an organization that somebody fills in place. It's a hat that's worn.
So, yeah, and the schools, of course, have compliance issues, and they would say that they've got very tight financial practices as it relates to compliance. But what I've seen is many schools are like other small businesses, where it's one more hat for someone to wear. And maybe you got somebody really working on the compliance side, but they don't necessarily have the practices in place that could be in place to really optimize that department. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's probably in small businesses the most underinvested hat from both a money and time perspective. And it's also one of the most important hats. When you think about how a CFO spends their time and how the job breaks down, right? Only about 20% of my time is spent on what you'd call accounting or financial reporting. That's really looking at the past. The majority of my time is spent looking at the future or dealing in other areas of the business. So, for example, real estate, IT, reviewing marketing strategies, running kind of scenario models and planning for the future about, hey, if we do this, then this happens, right? So, I joke, but it's also true that I spend my life 6 to 36 months in the future, and predominantly 6 to 18 months in the future. That most of my time is spent forward looking. Where do we need to add shops if we're going to grow? Do we need to relocate a facility? Similarly with schools, right? Do I need a bigger physical plant? Have I outgrown my current space? And if so, what's the process? What are we going to go through? I got to find a site. I got to create a plan, build it out, and then have a transition plan to move. Are my customers going to move with me? So the job of a CFO and the role of a CFO is a lot different, I think, than what most people think of as your traditional accountant. And again, going back to everybody in the business, everybody that's in business plays that role to one extent or another. Most people don't invest the time in it, especially the relationship side. So the relationships with your banks and investors, whether your capital sources are lenders or, friends, family, professional investors, whatever it may be. Also, your insurance companies. I mean, again, liability insurance is huge in this industry. And so I think from that investment standpoint, Tom, people think of a CFO as kind of a super accountant, and really it's not. The role is not that. And therefore they underinvest the time because they think it's something that it's really not.
Yeah. When you and I were prepping for this session, I suggested that not everybody has the opportunity to hire someone with your skills and your caliber. And part of what we're doing here is really making the whole concept of a CFO very approachable and very real. But I'm remiss in talking about your great background, so we should go there a little bit. So just real quick about Floyds, you want to give us just for those of people on the call don't know who Floyds is?
Yeah, so for those who aren't aware of Floyd's, we're a national brand. We're in the premium category, so we're not a value category brand. So we're not a Great Clips, Sport Clips, or Supercuts. We kind of play that next level up. And so we've got 126 shops across the country, literally from LA to Baltimore. We're not in every major metro area, so a lot of people probably don't run into us. 77 of the shops are corporately owned, 50 shops are franchisee owned. And so, we've really done franchising by accident. It was friends and family. We only have 8 franchisees right now. But we do about 700 customers a week on average for a mature shop, not in COVID, right? Again, capacity restrictions hurt us probably more than most of our people that you'd call our competitors. And our AUVs are about $1.1 million.
Yeah.
With where current pricing is on a normalized basis. So, we're small for what you'd call the chain franchise world, but we're pretty good size nonetheless. So.
And you're no stranger to the industry, and also you've got some great experience.
Yeah.
You've got some of these big four accounting experience. You've worked for some bigger brands, so no question you've got a lot of the skills. Tell us a little bit about your industry background real quick before we move on.
Yeah, so I've been in the industry personally about a decade. My family's been in it 35 years. My family owns 64 salons in Indiana and Southern Michigan. Again, kind of for me, I love this industry. I have a passion for it and the people in it. Again, I have some operations experience that a lot of probably pure finance people don't have just because of my background and my family. But the flip side is a really good CFOs get really close to the operations. I think it's something that's really critically important. And for small business owners, right, you're in the operations every day. So being close is kind of inherent and it's part of the nature. My family side does a lot of school recruiting, so I'm very familiar kind of with schools and that environment. Some of the challenges that you all have faced in the last kind of really 5 years. Ever since kind of the student loan things, happened and really kind of changed the industry. And then a lot of, I'd call rationalization of hours in terms of laws across states. So your guys' landscape, I know, has changed a ton, and, something that I've seen kind of from the front lines, us really being a client of schools.
Yeah. You talked about most underinvest in time and money in the finance function. I totally agree. You also said, it's again, these are small businesses. They don't want to have a bunch of overhead, and we're not recommending that they all, go out and hire a CFO. We're trying to do it. You talked about being thin but not bare. That's really staffing. Why don't you go there a little bit? I thought that was interesting.
I mean, it's my philosophy in running everywhere I've gone, and I do that at Floyd's. For example, my family business, right? I said we had 64 salons. We ran it with 3 people, counting me, and I didn't spend any time in journal entry. I wasn't doing any of the accounting work. I was doing all the other side of the job and then reviewing the financial reporting. But I had an accounting manager, a true accountant, true accounting manager, and then I had a AP payroll person, and we had 500 employees, 64 salons, doing about $24 million in revenue. And we're running that business with basically, 2.25, right on the quarter, 2.25 people. Really, it's about who you invest in, the level of the person you hire, and then it's about leveraging technology. And there's some great technology today. So, I mean, it has come leaps and bounds in the last, 10 years, and really in the last 5, where things flow in automatically and are integrated. So.
What I have found is that in a lot of the schools I've worked with is, yes, they're doing the compliance, they're getting the audit done, the financials, but their internal practices are very typical of small businesses. And what I find is that the finance function reaches a ceiling, a talent ceiling. Maybe you have the same person that's been there 5 years, 6 years, then 10 years, and they're still doing things the same way. And so they reach a ceiling in talent, they reach a ceiling in capability and technology. I think in the last 2 weeks, I've talked to a couple schools, and they're still waiting till bank statements and credit card statements arrive before they start closing the month out. And it's crazy, as opposed to, just using an auto feed that many, don't set up and take advantage of. Is that your experiences? Do you see that they reach a ceiling?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, right, everybody knows what they know and they don't know what they don't know. And a lot of what I call bookkeepers, or people who are accountants who have been kind of small business accountants for a very long time, but not really in industry, what I'd call it, they get comfortable. and they have a process and they know what to do and they do it and they do the same thing. And that's all they know. And they don't know what they don't know. So they don't know about the leaps that have happened in software technologies, and the prices come way down. I mean, QuickBooks, QuickBooks Pro Online, for example, you can import all your bank information straight in your credit card information. So it can do a lot of the work for you. They also typically aren't really proactive. And, one of the examples I use, right, is you as a business owner, you're waiting till the end of the month to get, because it takes them a whole month to close when they're waiting on bank statements and everything else. And by the time you get the information, it's too late to do anything for the current month if you find anything to make a change. So is it worth spending an extra $10,000 or $15,000 on the capability side, human capital or technology, to have those numbers in 10 to 15 days and be able to not only make decisions faster, but it also gives you another 15 days or 20 days in your department where they can help you look forward. They can be doing different things. And again, person with a higher skill set, it can do that. And so that's one of the things I think is missed a lot.
Speaking of skill sets, I know I'll give my personal experience, and I shared this in the last call. So I started out working for a CPA firm. I was in a firm. I was external practitioner. And then I went into industry. I became a CFO earlier in my career. And what I realized was that I thought it was going to be basically transferable skills. I had to learn a whole nother set of skills. And this is a big mind shift for many entrepreneurs. It's like they just assume that their CFO knows what it's like to be a CFO. And I can tell you it's not the case, because the skills are very different. And so many are really thinking their CPA is going to be able to do all these things, but most CPAs haven't actually operated in a role like you're in.
Yeah, I mean, it really truly is a very different skill set. I mean, go back to how I spend my day, right? Only 20% of my time is really looking at financial reporting of the past. There's a skill set called financial planning and analysis that's really all about the forward-looking projections. Some people call it financial modeling. Fundamentally, what you're doing is going, if we do this, whether it's make an investment, whatever it may be, what's going to happen? What do we think is going to happen? What's the likelihood? Mm-hmm. And, so that's future looking, right? Most CPAs are not future looking. They're 100% in the past. And most of them are tax focused. I mean, again, when you think about kind of specialties, right? Most small business owners, the CPA that they interact with is the tax practice.
Right.
And so, they're very specialized in one area. Yes, some people in the firm can give general business consulting, but they're not going to have experience in real estate and negotiating leases, negotiating with major vendors, negotiating with insurance companies, looking at different insurance plan options.
Or even helping with budgeting and financial modeling, like you talked about.
Yeah, I mean, my family business, right before I got there, they had a CPA since day one. They'd been in business 29 years before I joined, or 28, and they'd never had a budget. They'd never done operational analysis. They'd never benchmarked against the industry to even find out, are we doing a good job? Turns out we weren't, right? I mean, we joke in the family that we can write novels about all the ways we tried to screw this up. It, succeeded in spite of ourselves. But, it is definitely a very different skill set. And it's one that, again, this role is in every organization, whether you have somebody with the title or not, or whether you hire somebody or not, if it's you as the owner or your partner or spouse or whoever, the skill sets required of this role are different. And most of it's about looking forward and kind of the relationships to build that future.
You mentioned budgets and benchmarks, and we do have Jared Sanders on today, who's great. He's a CPA, and he's been working on this benchmarking project and with schools, which exists within franchise groups and with pockets, but it's not a very large sample size. And so I find a big gap in the professional beauty industry, schools and salons, from a benchmarking standpoint and the planning piece. So totally validating what you're saying. Now I'm watching the clock here, just heads up for the group here. I pulled Nathan out of 2 meetings today. He was kind enough. So we've got him for about 5 more minutes. And then I promised Nathan I'd let him go back. He's got a leadership meeting just down the hall. So let me see what other things I wanted to connect with you on. So some of the other things that you said that really stuck with me is invest time to see the return on investment.
Mhm.
So, you talked about leveling up the skills of the department and put a little bit of time in that. Where do you think a typical small business would see the return on investment with better analysis and that kind of stuff and modeling?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest places you're going to see it, you're going to see it in cost savings, right? If you invest the time, benchmark vendors, understand kind of your cost structure. Again, as a school, right? You use a lot of product. You have HVAC issues, physical plant issues, things like that. Having the right vendors can not only save you a ton of time, but true preventative maintenance can also save you a whole lot of money. The second area I think where you're really going to see the investment pay off, as much as we saw during COVID, right? The investment in relationships. People think banking is all about numbers. I got to tell you, I've done everything from a $100,000 loan to a $25 million loan. I can promise you, it's 100% about relationships. It is the single most under-recognized and under-invested in relationship that most small business owners have. And a lot of times it's because the bank hasn't assigned them a specific banker. The first thing is just go ask. Say, hey, I've got goals as an owner and to grow my business. And I'm really looking for a banking partner that can help and work with me. And, depending on the size of your business, I mean, like I love JP Morgan Chase as a $100 million company. But as a $1 million company, I think they suck. I mean, again, my family business has been there. Sometimes it's the local credit unions where you're going to get the time and attention that you need to grow your business, and it's going to invest in the relationship along with you to grow with you. I think that that's one of those pieces where the return on investment is huge, because they'll also tell you some things that, quite frankly, you may not want to hear about your business, but you need to hear as an owner and as the CFO of your business, about your performance versus competitors, about what it's going to take to get that loan if you need money, about how they look at your business. It really can be a great mutually beneficial relationship to give you kind of that unbiased look. And sometimes we all need a mirror to look in. I mean, I know I do. So,
you talked about, I think you were on the call last week when we announced our money course, and how many times again and again I've had the same experience where there's this complete misunderstanding about how much money an employee makes because they don't understand how to read a paycheck. They don't understand financial literacy. And it ends up being an issue. It ends up being an issue both for the employer and the employee just because of the lack of financial literacy.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's a huge issue. Again, I'm incredibly passionate about the people in this industry. I love them. They're creative. They're amazing. From a customer service standpoint, they're people. They want to make people happy. They are not at all financially literate. I mean, very few of them. And it's not something that's, really taught anywhere. It's something that we spend a lot of time investing in trying to teach once we get them as employees. But it is a huge gap. I mean, I have stylists making $100,000 a year that don't know it, don't realize it. And again, they think about, you go and ask any stylist in any organization, right? How much money do you make? I make $9 an hour, $12 an hour, $15 an hour, whatever the base rate is, right? You'll get 1% that go, oh, I know exactly what I make. I've got an app on my phone. I'm tracking my tips. I'm tracking my commission. I know exactly my thresholds I got to hit, both retail and service. But I mean, they're the 1% in this industry. And again, I mean, they make a lot of money. Our average stylist, right? Stylist and barber, they're all employees. So we don't do any booth rent. but our average stylist is making 29 to 30 bucks an hour right now. That's average. Our top earners, 100 to 120 a year, easy.
Yeah,
And it's not a small number that get there.
yeah, you're addressing another issue here is that's not just about not understanding the paycheck and what that means in terms of decisions they make that impact them and their employer, but also this whole thing about industry perception. That's another rant that I could get on for another week. And perception in terms of earnings in the beauty industry. But I'm watching the clock, and I made a promise to you that we'd get you back in the meeting. This has been a delight to spend time with you today. I appreciate it. Perhaps a few in the chat would have some comments for Nathan before he leaves, but I do want to officially award, this is actually your second because you double dipped today, your $1 million light bulb. So thanks so much, Jared, for your wisdom, and we'll have to invite you back as a guest if that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to come back. And again, any of the school owners out there that has a question or wants to ask anything, I'm more than happy to answer. Again, been around this industry a long time, been in this industry for a pretty good amount of time, and it's a passion. So
I think I had Jared on the mind. I think I used the word Jared, and of course, I mean Nathan. So Nathan, join us. I've
been called a lot worse.
All right. Well, thanks again. I appreciate it. Virtual applause for you, and we'll see you on the next go around. Okay.
Thank you very much. Have a great one.
All right, Nathan. Take care. All right. So I have a few more things before we wrap up here today. And before I do that, let me see who's on the call. I'm going to say hello to a few people. We have Alcott. Alcott, how are you today? It's great to have you on here. And Ann, you double dipped. You've been with us for both calls today. Always great to see you on here. And Claudia and Dawn and Diane and Diana, Jamie, Jared, good to see you on here. I know you were gone the last couple of weeks. Jessica, Jill, and Julie, and Karen, and Kristen, and Lisa, Matt, Michael, hello, Michael, and Ray, Roxanne, hi, Roxanne from Pardo, Susan, Terry, and Vasilki. I think I mispronounced your name. I apologize. But anyway, I'm very glad that you guys joined us today and that you tune in on this. I am going to just go through a couple other things for you. So as it relates to the finance function, one of the things that I've noticed, and not just working with salons and schools, but small businesses, is to really break the business down into various functions, and often call finance the fifth function because it's the function that gets the least amount of resources, education, attention, and yet that function is so important in a business, and it ends up being another hat that many owners wear. And maybe that's the case for some of you on there. So there's some great articles about this, the CFO's role in capability building. That's a great article. We referenced that maybe about a month ago. And then secrets of rock star CFOs. Boy, that seems like a oxymoron, rock star CFO. Trying to get a visual of that. All right. So before we wrap, as we announced last week, we are launching a course called Money by Qnity to provide money skills to help match their art and heart. I'm not going to go through this. These are some slides from last week, but this is a turnkey program for schools. Ultimately, it will help in default rates, and it will help in students getting great jobs and making great money. So I don't want to do commercial here. I'm trying to get to the point here. The content is so near and dear to me. I have really tried to pay attention to what I see in the professional side and how students come out and how ill-prepared they are. So to really address so many of the core things that are needed to have a basic understanding of financial literacy. So we are available to start booking demos, and Erin is on this call. She can type her email address in there. And this course does include a visual tool called a life map to help engage people around what their dreams are. And so it's not just about money, but it's really what prosperity means to them. So anyway, we like to think that this program is the first one that is totally designed for creative learners. and has the credibility of a curriculum that's built upon experience and research. So anyway, real life money stories from seasoned professionals. And so become a money school, book a demo. And that's all I'm going to say about that for now. Closing thoughts. We're going to keep it short today. We got 32 minutes after the hour. We will be on next week. Then we're going to take a week off. I'm going to go on vacation and I'm going to go somewhere fun. And but some of my closing thoughts are all progress starts when you tell the truth. And one of the truths that I'm encouraging you to tell is your finance function. Have you really taken a fresh look at it? Have you upgraded skills? Have you upgraded technology? Have you taken a fresh look at how you're doing things? And are you really designed to compete into the future, or do a lot of your systems and way of doing things just a bit stuck in the past? And I love this quote: if you want to fly, you have to give up the things that weigh you down. So anyway, that is all we got for you today. I want to thank you for joining us today, and we will be on again next week. I appreciate Nathan joining us today. If you have any final comments, type them in the chat, and we'll see you on the next go round. If anyone wants to be a member of the Brain Trust, or would like to be a guest on one of these roundtables, let us know. If you want to nominate someone, or if there's a topic of interest to you, let us know. Otherwise, I'm super grateful that you took the time today. I'm going to let you get back to it, and I hope you learned something. See you next week. Thanks again.